Welcome, everyone, to the Racing Everywhere Porsche Cup. We are here at the Red Bull Ring, and before we get to tonight's action, we would like to be able to thank our sponsors for tonight. First of all, Race Anywhere, who is able to put their title to all of this, as well as Sim Racing 3D and Go for the Gap. My name is DJ Clark, and I am joined in the booth tonight by Austin Belke. And Austin, with these Porsches out on track at the Red Bull Ring, what can we expect from them? Looks like my partner Austin's having a little bit of communication error there, so I'll just go ahead and tell you what this is going to be. This is going to be a major draft-heavy race around here, specifically going up the first long straightaway after the Niki Lauda curve, and then coming out of that Rauch corner and going down into Schlossgold. Those two corners will be the primary overtaking opportunities. From there on out, going through the infield section, it's going to be a little bit of follow the leader. These GT3s do generate some downforce, but not nearly as much as the Formula One cars that we are used to seeing around here. But all of that the same, it's very, very difficult to get a pass going down in through Rauch or Worth, those couple sets of corners. And then in Jakenrent and A1, the final two corners on the track, it is next to impossible to try to get a pass done, as they are really brush-breaking, super, super fast corners. But as we get going around here and get ready to check in on what is going on in practice, which is currently underway right now, to the surprise of no one, it's Dino Filippa leading the way right now in the pro category. Jani and Rankin behind him. Taronia, though, able to get a very, very good time up there in the Pro-Ams category, as well as Cooper and Alcaraz. But I have to say the big story here for me to watch out for is Logan Vajada. He is running around in 12th right now, and that is an AM driver. That is a mega time out of Logan. That is 12th overall, first in class, obviously, and he has put himself right in the middle of some of the Pro-Am drivers, so a really, really impressive run from him.
Tonight.
There's Austin. How are you, my friend?
I'm good, buddy. I don't know why the push-to-talk wasn't working, but yeah, like you mentioned, I look for him to be an extreme sleeper here tonight. Well, someone you don't look to be fast, you don't expect it, but you turn up and he is. I mean, looking for some exciting stuff from him tonight.
Indeed, he'll be one to watch for sure. We watch right now Jonathan Willett working his way around, only about a 10.5 off the pace of Dino Filippa. This is such a short track around here, and it really and truly just narrows those gaps between everybody out there. Willett only about 0.9 of a second off. But we're dealing with really infinitesimal margins around here, Austin.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, you look at the gap from driver to driver on the left side of your screen there, and you can see less than a tenth, about 0.2, just under 0.3, and then under a single tenth. I mean, with all the straightaways here, it's mostly just how hard can you plant your right foot. And for a lot of these drivers, it's the exact same. So it comes down to corners. The differentiation from corner speed from driver to driver is going to vary, obviously, with the talent level. But I think we're going to see a lot of these guys putting in some incredibly close laps. And the difference between winning and losing is going to be very tiny.
It sure is indeed. And as opposed to last week where we had the two sprint formats, tonight is a pseudo-endurance format. It'll be an hour and 15-minute race. That means pit stops will come into play around here. We'll have to see how the drivers choose to take that, choose to make everything work. As we watch here, this is Elvis Rankin. Remember, Rankin had a great run last time out at Sebring as he works his way around right now. That is Michael Jani behind him. So that is P2 and 3 in your pro standings.
Yeah, DJ, I mean, like you said, endurance format here, these guys are going to have the opportunity to choose when they'd like to pit. We're going to need probably 2 pit stops with how much they're on the throttle here. I look for a lot of guys to be lifting off early, coasting earlier on the upshifts, later on the downshifts, just to try and keep those ripums lower to burn as less fuel as possible. So that way you don't have to take as much on pit road when you do finally stop. I look for a lot of these guys to also stretch their fuel windows because, the less fuel you have in the car, the more straightaway speed you're going to have, which means when you're on the throttle about 75% of the time around this track, you're going to be going way faster than you normally would.
Yeah, exactly. And that draft is going to help a lot in that as well, both from a speed perspective and being able to keep up with the car ahead of you, as well as some of the fuel saving that you will be able to do as well. Being able to watch off a little bit, back off of that throttle pedal and just hold on. We ride on board here with Joseph Smith. He's currently down in 29th overall, 10th in that amateur category. Decent ways off the pace, but he's got a little bit of help in front of him. Let's see if that's going to help him pick up some draft. Ooh, that sun is going to be a storyline coming through A1.
Yeah, for sure, DJ. Honestly, I wish they would have the opportunity for you to wear sunglasses in the sim, because sometimes that sun is just right where you need to be looking at, incredibly, bright, especially at the apex. Sometimes it just gets the glossiness on the track when it's all rubbered in like that. It's impossible to see anything.
It can be very, very difficult, and especially at a high-speed corner like that, like A1, it can be very, very difficult. This is Alcaraz. They're currently 5th in the Pro-Am category, working his way around through Rauk, the top of the hill. It's a pretty prime overtaking opportunity, but it does present some challenges as well. The camber of the track, if you come in on that inside there a little bit, Austin, it's very easy to spin the tires.
Yeah, especially, also because you're kind of arcing the wheel more than you normally need to. Whenever you put more wheel into the car, it's a lot easier to spin the rear tires because your car automatically just wants to spin itself out. So you really have to work on maximizing your line around this joint.
Yeah, you really do. There's not a whole lot of room for error when it comes to that line. And really and truly, you've got to be absolutely perfect because there's only really about 9 or 10 braking zones overall. As we watch here, this is the 63 of Yerksoy working his way through those tricky corners right now. This is that sweeping back straightaway going down into Schlossgold. It can be very, very deceptive. There looks like a little bit of a weave there. He may just be practicing that, as I anticipate that being a move that we see quite often there. Errol maybe just getting used to trying to break the draft from the cars behind him.
Yeah, it might be trying to heat his tires up a little bit more too. It's kind of hard to tell, especially when someone leaves the pits. It's going to take you about a lap and a half to fully get your tires up to temperature.
Indeed. We watch here Dino Filippa, the absolutely electric driver of the 99, running a little bit wide there. That's something else we're going to have to take into account. Very easy to pick up some off tracks around this circuit, specifically in that final sector. Right here with Filippa, though, you can see that elevation change. The other big storyline around here is if you do get a little bit off track, if you do run over the track limits, there are some pretty big sausage curbs that'll come out and bite you. And these are GT3s, so they've got a little bit more of supple suspension than, say, a single-seater. But if you get too aggressive with them, woo, as we see Dino getting very aggressive with the corner there on the exit of Rauch. If you get too aggressive with them, Austin, they can bite you and mess up your car a little bit.
Yeah, DJ, I've seen those take out a couple cars that they've spun me out on a couple of occasions just from taking too much of them, coming off corner exits. So yeah, you do have to watch out for them, but they can also help you if you just kind of go up there right next to it. I've seen Lewis Hamilton kind of stop the car from oversteering by hitting those just right.
Exactly. So it's a little bit of give and take, a little bit of back and forth that you've got to do with them and to make sure that you are nice and good. We watch here Elvis Rankin as he works his way around in the closing stages of practice right now. We should be getting ready to go to the green flag here relatively soon. It's just a matter of when the organizers here decide that they are ready to get going. That clock up on the top hand left of your screen, they will advance the session before that. So don't worry, you don't have to hear us rambling around in practice here for another 30 minutes. And we are hearing that it's about 65 seconds from now is when they are going to advance the session. So it will be interesting. It will be fast. It will be fierce. And Austin, anything that you're going to be watching for in particular?
I'm going to be watching for the overtakes, especially up the hill between turns 2 and 3, DJ. There's really good overtaking opportunities to outbrake your competition. We saw a lot of guys messing with their brake bias last weekend at Sebring, spinning their own cars out, not even racing with anyone, just getting to braking. All running these cars can send your rear end around and totally ruin your day.
When you bring up that brake bias at a circuit like this, that's going to be extra especially important. You're going to want to have that forward brake bias going into the Niki Lauda curve, going into Rauch, going into Schlossgold. And then when you bring the car back around through Power Horse and Verth in that infield section, I've got to think you're going to want to shift the brake balance towards the rears a little bit more. Try to get a little bit more trail braking through there, as those are some faster corners that you're going to want to be going through. And you may want to play with some things, and so it'd have to be interesting to see if any of these drivers are doing that on the fly.
That's exactly right, DJ. I've tried to do that, lap in and lap out a couple of times a lap as we now go through here with our starting order, DJ.
We are indeed, and leading off in the poll, it's going to be Michael Janney, followed by Elvis Rankin, with Harry Willis and Dave Menino third and fourth. Jonathan Willett will be in fifth, followed by Justin Ream with John Bodefer and Dino Filippa in eighth, and Daniel Ferguson will round out your pro drivers.
Dean Tim lines up 10th overall, followed by Joe Garfias in 11th. Daniel Tenorio lines up 12th with Steven Martinez in 13th and Andrew Rasmussen in 14th. 15th is going to be Jay Steffi, followed by Jeremy Littleton in 16th. 17th is going to be Bruno Alcaraz with Taylor Lane lining up 18th. And John D. Cooper rounds out your Pro-Am field.
Lining up on pole for the amateurs, it's going to be Travis Kepler, followed by Andrew Hewitt, with Joseph Smith behind him and Eric Stamp and Drew Neubauer lining up behind them. But following that, in 25th overall, it'll be Gary Brown, followed by Dan Florio, with Errol Yuxoy and Michael Kulaga, and Casey Metzger behind them. Logan Vajada, remember, that's one to watch out for. He is going to be lining up in the back of the field, but he was setting some blinding times out here today, so we're going to have to keep an eye on that 97 machine.
That's right, DJ. And all the guys starting at the back end of this field, we should also mention how we do the lineups here, too. All the lineups are set by inverting the championship standings. So traditionally, you'd expect from week to week, you're going to have the fastest guys at the back because usually they're at the top of the championship. So some of the slower guys at the bottom end of the championship standings are starting first. So I would expect to see passing all race long, DJ.
As would I. We're hearing some news here. I think Dean Timms did not grid. He may be taking a pit lane start. So we will have to see, as there we're getting word. Michael Janney has control of the field, waiting for the go from Janney. Remember, he doesn't have to go. We've got that restart zone. He's still holding them, still holding them, still holding them, still holding them. And there he is, not yet on the loud pedal. Finally, he gets going. There we are, underway. Elvis Rankin and Michael Janney duking it out into the corner, and it's going to be Michael Janney being able to hold it up for the lead right now. The rest of the pros go single file. Looks like that's Garfias there. As I said, Timms did not grid, so it's going to run back to Tenorio here. Tenorio gets a very good jump on the rest of the field, bringing him forward. But what's happening back in the amateurs?
Amateur field currently coming out of the final two corners right now onto the front stretch. Field obviously in control of Travis Kepler as he leads them down the front stretch. And these guys can start anywhere they want. There is a restart box they're allowed to start in. That's why you saw Janney, taking as much control as he could down the front stretch. You can see Travis puts his foot on the loud pedal, rockets down into turn one, very much uncontested.
Very much uncontested indeed. We see their second place trying to take a little bit of a look there, but nothing doing there. That is Hewitt and Joseph Smith, but duking it out with each other. This is Michael Janney, though, the P2 driver, but he has got to be looking in his mirrors a little bit because your eyes do not deceive you. The number 99, Dino Filippa, already up 4 positions up into 4th. Oh, we've got a big spin. That's Harry Wills spinning out. Harry Wills having a big spin. That checked up Dave Menino and Justin Ream able to get by him.
We're going to take a look at that replay in just a couple seconds here. We're currently looking at the battle overall for the pro category and for the entire race here as Michael Janney still leading Elvis Rankin down as they come to complete their first lap here. You can see the rest of the pro field coming out of the final corner and down the front stretch.
Indeed, down the front stretch there, and that is going to be Elvis Rankin tucking up behind in that draft, that all-important draft that we have talked about so many times. Michael Janney able to set the fastest lap of the race, and here is that replay, Austin.
Yeah, we're going to see what happens here to cause the first incident. First major incident, I'm sure there'll be a couple here, but you can see Andrew looks like he just locks up his brakes, gets it all wrong with the brake bias, is collected by the car beside him, and you can see, thankfully, the rest of the field able to kind of cut on through there. But we're going to look back on board here with Janie and Rankin trying to get some draft. Now we're going to go back to the Pro-Am category. Looks like Andrew Rasmussen leading this whole train of cars behind him.
He is indeed. Tenorio and Martinez have been able to pull themselves out a little bit, but Rasmussen under heavy assault here. Steven Martinez there up front. Ooh, a little bit of double wide there as they go up into Rauch. That's the 31 machine of Littleton trying to make a move on Jay Steffi a little bit, but not able to do it. And there he is able to get by. Now the draft coming into play as they work their way towards Schlossgold.
Yeah, that hairpin for turn one is one of the best spots to overtake another car. You're really even on the inside versus the outside. It all just depends who can carry the most speed through that corner. Now they're getting into the middle section. This is all where it's about momentum. You need to slow down the car just enough, like you mentioned, DJ, maybe playing with the brake bias a little bit for these long sweeping corners you can see going through side by side. This is definitely going to slow down their momentum by a ton and just bring the rest of the field up to the back of them. But, at the beginning of this race, you have to be as audacious as you can and as aggressive as you can to get all the spots while they're still available.
You have to indeed, and that was Martinez and Rasmussen that were duking it out. That's going to be a little bit of a look there. Whoo, you got to be a little bit careful on that one, boys. You can't get too much of a pass going, but we're going to jump back up here. This is Daniel Ferguson. To his inside is Dave Menino. They're going to be ants marching, coming up the hill, going into Rauch. They start to settle themselves out. That's the 27 of Willett, looking at a little bit of three wide. Not going to be able to do it. The 3 of Dave Menino, though, able to get the run on the inside. That's a good run for Menino. He's going to try to have a little bit of a run here on Ferguson, and they're going to be side by side as they head down the hill towards Schlossgold. Menino stubbornly holding on to that inside line. If he can hold it here to get this to work, he's going to still have a little bit of a crossover.
Wow, what an amazing drive by both these guys, especially even the two behind them, just trying to make any move they can of Owlett and Bodefer. These guys are just giving all they can right now. That break-in, the hard break-in into turn two without making a single mistake from either driver, that's what makes these guys in the pro category. The amount of talent they have is unbelievable.
It really and truly is, but there you see Menino having to back out of the fight a little bit. That's going to allow for Willett to maybe try to make a little bit of a look-see here. And behind him, that's going to be Bodefer taking a very aggressive move there into that penultimate corner. I believe that's Jochen Rindt curve. Oh, there they go. Getting a little bit squirrely on the brakes. Definitely messing with that brake bias. Oh, we've had a crash in the Pro-Am. That's Rasmussen off and around.
Go ahead and get you guys replay that in a couple seconds here. Looks like we're going to go right to that. Looks like he just tried to put the power down and arced the car back to the left before he had to put it down to the right with another car to his outside there, inside rather, and just got, swapped ends there, DJ.
Yeah, just swapped around there, and as you said, just put the power down a little bit too early, but we're going to check back in on that battle. This is John Bodefer that you see on your screen trying to chase down Dave Menino and them up ahead. This, however, is Jay Steffi. Now, this is for P4 in that Pro-Am category. Right up ahead of him, that is Martinez and Garfias, the final podium positions. Ooh, Garfias playing a little bit fast and loose there on a little bit of a Pruitt fade. That's going to allow for Steffi to close back in as the 53 of Martinez had to break a little bit earlier than I think he would have liked to.
Yeah, for sure, DJ. Honestly, the best way to take advantage of someone is just to put them off their game as much as you can. And you can see these guys obviously are very good at doing that to one another. When you race around people often enough, you kind of know how to get inside their head and how to just make it, to your advantage to mess with them. And so you can see currently Elvis Rankin still harassing Michael Janey for the lead overall, especially in the pro category.
Harassing is the right word, but I have to say I was just taking a little bit of a ride on board with Elvis Rankin, and he's keeping that Porsche up in some higher gears here, so I think there may be a little bit of fuel saving going on behind the wheel of that number one machine.
Yeah, for sure. Obviously, sometimes it can also put you offset with the rest of the field if you can stay out there for another lap. Maybe you can even make the pass on pit road by virtue of taking less time in the pits and, go ahead and take up, all the advantage you can out on track in the clean air without having to worry about where Michael Janey is and what he's doing with your car. If you think you're faster by a tenth or two of a second, go out there and take the lead.
Exactly, and over the course of the last couple of laps, it has swapped back and forth. We're going to jump back to the Pro-Am category there. Remember that battle we were following between Garfias and Martinez? Well, Martinez has fallen back off the tail of Garfias, and that's allowed for a little bit of a train to form here. Jay Steffi falling back into the hands of Cooper as of right now. John Cooper in that pink and white Porsche, poking his nose to the inside. That's a mistake out of Steffi, and John Cooper says, "Thank you very much. I will take that position."
Yeah, by far the easiest way to make a pass is for your opponent to make a mistake. A very rare mistake there from Jay Steffi. He's usually someone that doesn't make any mistakes. We've seen him win a lot of races from the pole, or at least starting up front and just putting in a fantastic race, never putting a wheel wrong. Saw him do that a lot in the Race Anywhere Transatlantic Series, but obviously not quite the case for him today.
No, indeed not, as we now focus back to that seemingly never-ending battle between Ferguson, Menino, Bodefer, and Willette. They continue to fight their way around right now. We ride on board with John Bodefer working the way up the hill towards the Niki Lauda curve. It's not the best overtaking area on the track. It's not really a full-on heavy braking zone. You can really see him only dropping there down into second gear. See if he tucks behind here a little bit better. He's also got to keep an eye out for the 67 of Willette behind him. Ooh, looks like Menino is able to pull in a little bit close. Everybody taking their preferred line through Rauch as now they get back on the power and the draft train begins again.
Yeah, like you mentioned, DJ, turn one, a very, very fast corner. You really just kind of throw the car in there and hope for the best, kind of similar to the way you run, especially the last two corners here. You just kind of throw it in there, hope for the best, and gather it back up on corner exit. Hope you don't go too wide, incur a time penalty. This place is one of the harshest for them. You wouldn't think you gain an entire second or two, but it certainly makes it give you all that 1 or 2 seconds back.
It does indeed, as we've got a nice little battle that was shaping up there. We watch Eric Kulaga in the 10th position, but Errol Oreski, as he is now getting ready to pounce on Neubauer ahead of him in that AM category. This is a really, really fierce battle, really precipitated by that little mistake that you saw on your screen.
Yeah, Errol is one of the best overtakers in the league. Him and Michael Kulaga just behind him. The Kulaga's very, very fast brothers. You can kind of see the two fastest guys in our AM category just chasing each other up through this field, DJ. This is a time you need to make as many overtakes as you can because the field's still bunched together.
And speaking of overtakes, there goes John Bodefer on Dave Menino, trying to get that out. Menino catching a little bit of that outside sausage curb. That's going to allow for a little bit of a look here, potentially from Willette, as he now is able to go in there. Jonathan Willette trying to poke his nose behind, seeing if he can make a move on Menino. Menino going to be forced to the inside. He may go from defense to attack here as he tries to get the power down on John Bodefer. They're going to be side by side coming out of the route turn, and now they're going to be in a straight-up drag race towards Slosgold.
Yeah, you can see just how difficult it is to put the power down. You saw Dave come off the corner, had the advantage over Bodefer, but just couldn't quite put the power down coming out of Rourke there. So, a little bit side-by-side contact there. I don't know if the cars adored each other there.
It looked like there may have been just a little bit, and I'm not sure if that was a little bit of a hip check from Dave Menino or if the car just got a little bit loose coming through Slosgold one way or the other. Worked their way through Powerhouse and now down to Worth, and it looks like Bodefer is going to be able to hold on to that position. Yes, indeed, they're going to slot back into line. Willette here maybe having a little bit of something. Jonathan trying to take a look down to the inside, going into Rint. Is he going to try to make this stick? No, he's going to back out of it, just trying to see if he could force Menino into a little bit of a mistake.
Yeah, that was a wise move there to back out of it. Honestly, I can't fault him for showing his nose there, trying to put Dave off his momentum there, getting his head a little bit, make him give you the inside if possible. At first, I wasn't sure there if Bodefer had a slowdown penalty the way he tucked back all the way to the right by the wall there, but I believe that was just to break the draft. Like we said, DJ, the draft is huge here. I look for a lot of cars to be able to not be as fast as the guy ahead of them, but due to the long straightaways and just the immense amount of time you can gain from the draft, be able to just get pulled along like we see in all the contact there. One car actually forced, I believe that was Menino, forced off track for the two cars making contact. Now it looks like Oulette's going to shove it up the inside. Ooh, getting really squirrely coming off rope there.
And that's one of the problems of going through Rauk is that curve is cambered, and there's definitely a dip right at the apex. And if you go a little bit too tight, like Jonathan Willett did right there, it can throw off the handling of the car. Now they're going to stay in line as they go down through Schlossgold. And look at this. This is allowed for Harry Wills to close back in behind on the rest of this battle a little bit. Wills, though, falling off here as they go through the infield section around the infamous bull. Let's check out a replay here. This is Drew Neubauer.
Yeah, you can see Drew just goes a little bit too far wide there, gets an off track, and he probably just puts it, again, too wide there. Next, it has to pull it down to the inside to let his opponents pass. And this place is very harsh with the time penalties.
It very much is a modern Formula One circuit, as the Red Bull Ring is. There's lots of paved runoff, and so for these drivers, it is very, very easy for them to go off track, and iRacing has a very strict off-track policy, so you've got to be very careful about the way you do it. Check back here on the battle I've been keeping my eye on. This is for P1 overall and for the lead of that pro category. Michael Janney still leads Elvis Rankin, but Rankin has been keeping close behind, not really letting Janney out of his sights. Dino Filippa has been able to close in by inches over the past couple of laps. Looking back on the last 5 laps, it's been 3/10, 3/10, 400ths, 2/10, and 9,000ths. So there may be a little bit of fuel strategy there. There may be a little bit of give and take, but one way or the other, Dino Filippa has fully caught up to these guys now.
Yeah, very much so a Mr. Where did he come from? Because Dino, honestly, he was nowhere to be found, and he's gained a lot of time on these guys, and only a couple laps. We're only on lap 9 here, and you can obviously see the difference of where these guys started. So obviously Dino's making a ton of time as we go to look at Michael Kulaga right here. Not quite sure why we went back to him. It looks like he does have quite a bit of damage on his nose, though, DJ.
Well, it looked like he was a little bit slow coming through Rint. I wonder if he had a little bit of an off going through the infield section. We'll have to jump back to our replay boards and find that out. Yeah, he's looking very, very slow.
Yeah, he might have gotten a slow down there. Oh, wow, a bunch of cars actually piling into each other. Be very curious to see what happened there. I think one car might have gotten his braking point all wrong, swapped ends, and another car had to stop on track. We're going to see the replay of that right here. Oh, yeah, you can see that the silver and black car on the inside trying to slow down a little bit too much, and everyone else just having more momentum than he thought he would, and he tries to stay to the inside, but that's the racing line.
Yeah, bingo, bango, bongo, all of them just running into each other. Not entirely sure where Kulaga picked up that damage, but damage he does have. It may have been an incident like we just saw where there was a little bit of miscommunication out on track and drivers running into one another. But Kulaga trying his best to fight back here. That is Drew Neubauer right ahead of him, only about 0.3 of a second behind. Looks like there's damage to the rear of the car as well, but the good news for Kulaga, I'm not seeing any damage on that rear spoiler. That means he probably won't be losing too much time down the straights.
No, that's right, DJ. And honestly, sometimes I wouldn't be too afraid if your wing does get damaged. It might knock that thing out of the air just a little bit as we're going to look at these cars again. I believe Eric got most of his damage probably from that incident we saw going into turn 1. You can see Andrew Hewitt just getting his brake bias a little bit messed up there. Swapping ends almost. Luckily for him, though, he can save the car mid-corner offline so he isn't collected by anyone else.
Yeah, indeed, able to hold it together. Kulaga, despite the damage to both ends of that machine, looks like he's able to keep up relative pace. He may be struggling a little bit through the twisty bits, but he's still able to keep relative pace in the straights. We jump back here, though. This is Jonathan Willett. Now, they've fallen off the back of John Bodefer to the tune of about 1.8 seconds, but Dave Menino all over the back of that 67 green Porsche.
Yeah, obviously Dave was passed by Mike Owlett a couple laps ago, and he's trying to look at just getting that spot back. I don't know if he quite has the pace for Bodefer, obviously, because he was passed by Bodefer, but I do believe right now Owlett kind of holding Dave up just a bit.
Indeed, it does look that way, but I'll give credit to Dave Menino. He is one of the more patient and collected drivers that I've had the privilege of keeping an eye on here on the iRacing Simulator. He does not like to make a move unless he knows there is something good there. I've had a long history of covering Dave Menino, so let's see what he is able to do here. Doesn't quite look like he gets the jump out of route that he would like, but still able to try to push ahead.
Well, let's be honest too, DJ. He could be saving fuel right now. Obviously, you know, you can save fuel and wait for a high percentage move to come your way. As we look at the battle for P3, maybe even be a podium spot. I believe that's second right now as we look at Travis Kepler and his team Premet Porsche number 16 there, currently fighting with Yurik Soy. and you can see just ahead of them is Mr. Vada. So these guys, they're getting it on.
Indeed, they are. Oh, there you see. I love that from Logan Vada, just moving off the line a little bit, trying to break the draft as much as he can. This is a nice little train starting to shape up as they work their way around. Vada leading them off, Kulaga behind, then Metzger, who is obviously down a little bit. I believe he is in a different bit of a fight. Neubauer there as well, so everybody really bunched up here.
That's right, DJ. That's one of the things too about the draft is it just helps the slower guys kind of keep up with the fast guys. One thing I want to touch on too is that Kulaga car. Like you said, he's kind of challenged in the twisty bits. He lost a lot of front downforce with the damage on the front end of his car. But with the draft, as long as he can tuck in behind another car, that the extra drag on his car is not going to even play a factor on these high-speed corners because the car ahead of him is punching that hole in the air for him. So he's probably not even going to know he's down on top speed until he doesn't have another car in front of him down the straightaways.
Indeed, you are right, but we've got another storyline to keep covering here as the leaders of the pro category have caught up to the back of the amateurs. That's right, it's time for lap traffic around here. Everybody able to clear out and around Joseph Smith and Andrew Hewitt. They're two of the drivers that just went a lap down. Your leader, is Michael Janney. Elvis Rankin continuing to follow behind him. This is Daniel Ferguson, though. Fergie has been able to catch up behind Ream. Now, this is going to be for P6 4 out on track. Sorry.
Yeah, you can see right there on the left side of your screen, folks. You can see the pro drivers denoted by the white colors, Pro-Am in the blue, and then the amateur drivers in red. That's how we can tell what difference they are when a car is shown on your screen. Right now, we're looking at Elvis Rankin. You can see the number 2 is highlighted yellow, and is also yellow on the left side of your screen, so you can kind of tell who we're looking at, where they're running. Something we always like to touch on each and every time in case you're new here to this Race Anywhere Porsche Cup Series.
Indeed, and it looks like we've had our first taker on the pit stops, Kulaga, coming down pit lane. So that is the first driver to take what we believe is a scheduled stop around here.
Yeah, for sure, DJ. I think these guys are going to come in for 2 stops. Is especially a good idea if you know you're faster than the person or 2 ahead of you, because it's incredibly hard to make a pass and keep that position, because as soon as you pass a guy, they get such an immense run down the straightaway here. It's very easy to pull a crossover halfway down the track. If you don't time it right, you can just keep the position in front of the guy, especially in these twisty bits. It's impossible to pass. Dirty air is a real screwdriver here for some of these drivers because you don't know where your car is on track. It's harder to hit the apexes you need to, and sometimes the car is just going to go wide because of the lack of downforce.
Exactly, but how much is losing that draft going to factor into these drivers' decisions to pit and when? We've seen many a time where on some of these draft-heavier circuits like this, Spa-Francorchamps, for example, Monza, when some of these Porsches have gone out there, that you want to actually sort of pit in pairs and have a drafting buddy, as losing that draft can cost you tenths, if not entire seconds. So, is that going to affect the strategy here, or are drivers going to keep going? Justin Ream coming down pit lane. He is the highest placed driver and the first of your pro drivers now to opt to come down pit lane.
DJ, I think it's going to play a huge factor into these guys' minds when they're running around the track, trying to figure out when they need to pit, because I'd say, honestly, the draft is worth about 2 or 3 tenths of a second when you're out there pushing as hard as you can. But I would reckon most of these drivers are probably just kind of lifting and coasting, especially Rankin and Filippa right now. They're probably just following Michael Janney. He's probably full throttle the entire time to make sure he doesn't lose the lead. He's obviously going to take advantage of all the lap cars ahead of him. You can see the lap car. Usually in this league, they're very polite about getting out of the way, but I'm sure they both understand that, Janney wants as much draft as he can get right now.
Well, he wants as much draft as he can get on the straights, and he wants the drivers to get out of the way. Ooh, that looked a little bit hairy there for Michael Janney, trying to get around that lapped car. No fault of theirs. That's the 47 machine of Drew Neubauer. Neubauer really didn't have any option there and where to go. He tried to take it as far as possible, and now luckily everybody able to get by him. That gap from first back to third remaining under a second. Only about 8 tenths between Janney and Dino Filippa. Let's see if any of these drivers opt to come down pit lane. No, none of your leaders do.
Well, that's just the one thing that's weird about these multi-class endurance races is that there's drivers in different fields. So even though it's not going to hurt Neubauer from letting these guys by, they're not fighting for position. If he does slow down, he's going to give up time. Obviously, I think the right thing for him to do there is just to kind of back out of the throttle, allow the leaders to keep doing the race, especially when you get to the second sector of this track, because it's so technical and that it's very line dependent on where you are. So I'm sure it's probably very sketchy for him and these drivers to go too wide in that area. But obviously, he doesn't want to lose any time to the cars behind him, because you can see on the left-hand side of your screen, he's got about a 2-second deficit to Travis Kupfer in front of him, and he wants every position he can.
Yeah, indeed. You really don't want to give up anything, if at all possible here. We'll continue to watch Elvis Rankin. Whoa! Casey Metzger taking a little excursion off into some of the gravel runoff here. I believe that's on the exit of Schlossgold.
Yeah, we're going to see what happens right here. You can see he just kind of gets his braking a little bit off right there, swaps ends once he gets into the gravel. Saves the car, though. What an amazing piece of driving right there. Keep that thing under control, especially going into the gravel. We've seen a lot of the F1 cars do that. Lewis Hamilton did that to Alex Albon a couple years ago. It's very, very hard to get the car slowed down because that corner is very weird. There's some banking there, but it also, the track kind of goes away from you the further you get into the corner, so the car unloads in a very, very weird way.
Indeed, it does. As we continue to watch here, this is Steven Martinez. Now, he has been caught down by Lane behind him. That is Taylor Lane in the number 32 machine.
Yeah, Taylor's kind of just snuck his way up to being right behind Steven Martinez now. And I'm sure Steven's seen this coming. Obviously, these drivers went around with their relative on, currently just stalking his prey right here as we look at Jay Steffi, one of the drivers who made a mistake early. He's trying to claw back from that as he follows Jeremy Littleton in that fantastic-looking Gulf-liveried Porsche. You can see these two getting it on, almost going side by side. They both think better of it. Jay Steffi especially thinks better going too wide through this technical section. The twisties, as we call them there, DJ. A very smart move by him to just kind of lay back, give it another shot as we go down the straightaway here.
Yeah, indeed. You really don't want to try to force any sort of maneuver there. There is a little bit of off camber in those curves in the infield section. Very, very difficult, but Steffi doing a good job to keep everything nice and together here, just closing in behind Littleton the best that he can. Jeremy, for his merit, is doing a good job of just keeping him behind as best as possible.
Oh, you can see the two cars in front of these guys. Yep, we just had an overtake for position. Martinez just went a little bit wide there before the last corner, using as much of that runoff as he needed to make sure he didn't spin the car out. Got a slow down penalty from iRacing. You can see had to forfeit that spot to Taylor Lane. Taylor, I think, is just going to be able to drive away from this, but I would look to Steven Martinez to just try and get everything he can with the draft to make sure he isn't caught and then passed by Littleton and Steffi behind him right now.
Yeah, indeed. He's going to have to try to keep an eye on that the best that he can. We jump back to that battle for the lead here. Elvis Rankin now looking like he's losing a little bit of touch to Janney ahead of him. Dino Filippa able to close in behind.
Yeah, it kind of seems like once that lap car kind of got in between the two of them in the second sector right now, he just hasn't been able to gain as much time as he thought. And I don't know if that's because he prefers following at this kind of distance. It's a lot easier to kind of get all the draft you can down the first part of the straightaway, lift off early, and maybe he doesn't get too much dirty air in the second sector, or if he just doesn't have the speed in his car anymore. You can see really maximizing that late braking, but obviously Michael Janney able to put the power down much sooner and think a little bit better as they head down the straightaway through into turn 3 here.
Oh, we've got a little bit of a battle starting to heat up for the lead of the amateurs. That is Steven Vada able to get it by. Remember, we said just how quick that 97 machine was out in practice. He's able to get by Gary Brown, and it looks like Errol Yurskoy is there as well, trying to fight Gary too.
Yeah, Yurik's always seen how easy it was for Vada to get past Brown there. He says, hey, I need to get past this guy right now. Otherwise, it's going to be incredibly hard to catch a car that's just as fast as I am. It's almost impossible to catch someone when you're running the same speed. We can see both these guys just maximizing their Porsches out there right now. Errol probably having a real headache trying to get by Brown right now. But, of course, both these guys, they want to finish as high as they can, and you're not obligated to get out of the way. You're in the same class right now. And after all, positions are points.
Positions are points, but they're going to have a little bit more on their own mind. We're going to watch the replay here. Now, Gary had a pretty big lead out in front of him there. You can see behind him just how far out it was. But that Porsche decided to go for a little bit of a ride and spin itself around. Gary able to get everything back and controlled. So there is some speed definitely behind that machine.
Yeah, just like you mentioned there, DJ, kind of off camera dips a little bit, especially just after the apex. So it's incredibly easy to spin the car out if you got too much wheel into that thing. Don't maximize your corner exit. You can see that's what Gary didn't do right there. He didn't try to, will the car to the outer edge of the track there just to make sure the rear end didn't step out him too much. And you can see, that's just the fine line these guys are on. They're running at the absolute limit of these tires.
They really and truly are trying to hold it out the best that they can as they continue to work their way around right now. And they're going to have a whole nother issue to deal with. Your eyes do not deceive you. That is Michael Janney, Elvis Rankin, and Dino Filippa coming up behind them. So these are the leader of the pro drivers who are about to try to overtake this battle.
Yeah, and this isn't just any battle. This is a battle for podium spots. The last two, podium spots in the AM category. Just ahead of them is the leader of the AM category, Vada. So, he's really isn't going to want to get out of the way. None of these guys are going to want to get out of the way for these pro drivers, even though they are faster. They're in a class above them. They're kind of obligated to get out of the way, but you want to lose as little time as possible. So sometimes that means you got to, make some frenemies here in this league to make sure that you can keep all the time you have relative to your competition.
I love the way you phrase that of trying to keep some frenemies here as they work their way around. Dino now working his way through this hodgepodge of drivers. I love the way that they're just bopping back and forth here, trying to pick up the best draft that they're able to.
That's what you need to do here. These guys are playing for keeps right now. If you see a draft out there, you need to get that. Obviously, it's going to help you with overall speed down the straightaway, but it's also going to help you save fuel. And let's be honest, if you can just maximize 1 or 2 laps on fuel here, it's going to be about a couple quarters of a second less in pit road. Also going to give you a little bit more straightaway speed, especially compared to someone else with a heavier fuel load. So obviously, you have to maximize your draft.
Yeah, you really and truly do the best that you can at any rate as they continue to work their way around. I have some bad news out there for the driver, for anybody who is a fan of the driver of the number 6, Daniel Ferguson. Looks like he's had some internet issues and he has fallen down the order. He is effectively out of tonight's race. Some internet issues befalling Daniel and driving him out of contention.
Yeah, a real heartbreak there for him. Already 3 laps down compared to his competition. We haven't seen too many incidents here, so even if he were to rejoin the session, even though he cleared the calendar, it's fun to just, drive these cars on the iRacing service, especially here at the Red Bull Ring of all tracks, unless he's, some of his competition had some difficulties and some incidents of their own. I don't foresee him gaining too many spots or positions relative to the rest of the field here.
No, nor do I, sadly, but drivers continuing to go here as we watch that battle. This is Gary Brown trying to hold off Errol Yurksoy as Errol's got a good tuck up behind in the draft. They've got to be careful. That's Casey Metzger behind them. That is another battle for position. Errol thinking about poking his nose to the inside up into Rauk. A little bit of a one ride for Gary, and that's going to allow for a drag race to start. Here we go on the run from Rauk down into Schlosskold. It's going to be side by side for P2 in the amateur category. Everybody keeping their eyes focused ahead. It's a battle of the late breakers. Is it going to be Errol or Gary? Looks like Gary's able to carry momentum around on the outside, but that momentum comes back to bite him as he runs up onto the curbs, and I think he got a little bit of a wheel spin coming out of the corner. Errol Yurksoy now tries to cut him off, and cut him off he does. That is Yurksoy up into P2 in class.
Yeah, fantastic move there by Yurksoy. He just braked a little bit earlier to try and use all his momentum for off the corner, whereas, Gary Brown had the opposite idea. He saved his braking for the second part of the corner, just couldn't keep all the momentum exiting there, and you can see what a great job by Yurksoy, able to take P2 right now and try to hunt down Vada in front of him.
A fantastic run. Whoo! Casey Metzger biting off a little bit more than he can chew for right there. We're going to jump back to that battle in the lead overall that we've kind of kept our eyes on as Taylor Lane from the Pro-Am category, he's going to choose to dive down the pits here as Dino Filippa has been able to close in a little bit more on Elvis Rankin.
Yeah, I'm not quite sure if these drivers are all just kind of saving fuel in their can and lifting and coasting for a little bit. So sometimes, the lead between them just changes a little bit in terms of the pace overall. You can see again, want to highlight this too. We like to do this once every broadcast. You can see the interval there on the rightmost part of that thing on the left part of your screen. You can see right now if the number is in orange font, it's less than half a second. If it's in yellow font, it's between 1/2 and 1 second. And obviously, if it is in white font, white colored font, excuse me, it'll be more than a second. So you can kind of see, when a battle is really starting to heat up, it goes from white to yellow to orange. That lets you really know how close these drivers are to one another. So you can see all the battles on the left-hand side of your screen, especially the close ones. Currently, obviously, this battle for the first 3 spots in the Pro category. For the Pro-Am category, it's going to be right now hotly contested battle for P2. And then in the Am category right now, another hotly contested battle for P2. Again, battle we just looked at between Yurksoy and Brown. Obviously, Brown able to keep hot on Arrow's heels.
Indeed, but Brown under a little bit of pressure from Metzger, but we're going to keep our eyes focused here. Now, something we've got to take into consideration, Austin, we thought this was going to be a 2-stop race for most of these drivers, but we're starting to push along a little farther here. We've only got 45 minutes to go in this race, and we're seeing these leaders staying out. Andrew Rasmussen, though, Daniel Floria, 2 drivers that are coming down pit lane and coming out right now. I'm starting to think if some of these drivers up front are maybe a little bit lighter on the right pedal, and that means that they're able to make this into a 1-stop.
I think so too, JJ. Obviously, the time halfway through the race is coming up pretty quick here. If these guys don't stop soon, it is going to be a 1-stop or maybe just a splash and go at the very absolute end of the race. So I'd be surprised if these guys could do it on just 1 stop. But, we'll have to look at some of the drivers who pitted at the earlier part of this race, being Dean Timms. I think some other guys came into the pits earlier too to see if they have to make another stop by the end of the race. Or maybe, these guys will have enough fuel to last them until about 20 minutes to the end of this thing, because that's as early as we saw some of the earliest guys pit at the beginning of this race.
Well, that would certainly explain some of the lack of aggression that we've frankly seen out of Janny Rankin and Philippa here, as all 3 of them not really pushing that hard, just keeping up with one another. And that would certainly explain the reasoning why that they are backing off a little bit. But we're going to jump back here. This is a battle that we've got shaping up in the Pro-Am category, right on board with Casey Metzger right now.
Yeah, Metzger obviously putting in a fantastic run here today in his Twisted Racing Porsche. A lot of teammates here. He arcs the car down pit road. Time for his pit stop.
Time for his pit stop indeed, as Gary Brown continuing to try to hold off, or to try to chase back in on Arrow Yurksoy here, as Gary obviously lost that position, lost the lead of the Am standings courtesy of that big spin that he had coming out of Rauch Curve. See the sun starting to set around here, lights coming into play. We talked about it last time out at Sebring, Austin, but when the night starts to befall on these cars, it gets just harder and harder to drive.
That's right, DJ. The track gets a lot cooler. The tires get cooler. It's really hard to keep temperature in these cars, especially if you go offline. They're a lot harder to drive. It's even harder to see your braking points. The good thing at Sebring was you had all the cones right to the side of the track. But here, obviously, being an F1 course, one of the things you made mention of last weekend was where the braking points are in an F1 course. They're all the way on the side. Sometimes they're even up off the ground. Thankfully, for a lot of these corners, they're not too far off to the side of the course, and they are on the ground, kind of where your headlights are already pointed. So a bit easier to see than some of your other traditional F1 courses where those braking points, kind of like how they are at Watkins Glen, way up on top of the fence there. So if you were at night, you wouldn't be able to see them whatsoever. We saw a car there. I wasn't sure who that was. He just very much off course.
Very much indeed, and we've got the leaders. The leaders are down pit lane. Michael Janney, Elvis Rankin, and Dino Filippo all coming down. Justin Ream, their closest competition, he has been able to get out ahead of any of the other drivers that he was sort of battling with earlier on in the Pro category. We watched Taylor Lane here working his way around. Lane is going to stay out, having already taken his pit service back on lap 19. Seeing some promotions coming up through the field as drivers work their way out. Looks like your leaders will be able to come out in the order that they came in. There is Ream, still waiting for service. There, the leaders are out and on their way. I think that's going to be enough for them to gap Ream.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah,
Philippa comes
Philippa.
out first. Yeah, what a move from him. I'm not sure if that's maybe just how much fuel he was able to save, but currently it's going to be Philippa and then Jenny and then Rankin. So right now, Janie obviously losing one spot, and Philippa, what a fantastic move from him. These guys went into the pits incredibly aggressive. I saw them both stop in their stalls at the same time, kind of just arc their cars more to the left so they could get a really fast out of pit road. But I'm not sure if this is underfueling the car on Philippa's part to kind of gain that second he had of a deficit to Janie. I'm not sure if that's what he did, but if that's the case, it's going to be very hard for him to save all that fuel relative to the two cars behind him. But especially Janie, he would have been having to burn the most fuel being out, punching the hole for these two drivers. But, we saw Philippa have to run these guys down and then he was able to save fuel. So I have to imagine right now that Rankin is currently in the best spot because he was saving all that fuel this entire time. I think he took just as much fuel as Janie. So I wouldn't be too surprised if he ends up winning this race based purely on fuel strategy.
Well, and what's interesting there is all three drivers took relatively the same amount of fuel in that stop. Rankin taking 20 seconds worth, Janie taking 19.9 seconds, and Dino Philippa taking 19.7 seconds. However, where Philippa was able to gain the advantage, well, that was cone to cone. He was able to get in and get out faster in the pit lane, 37.4 seconds as compared to Janie and Rankin's 38.4. So about a second faster there, and that was just enough to put him in the lead. As we check in on Andrew Rasmussen, trying to hold off Martinez while simultaneously chasing down Jay Steffi right ahead of him.
Yeah, these guys locked in a fierce battle for sure. Rasmussen and Martinez currently been fighting for a long time, just trying to get back up to the tail end of Steffi right now. We saw him make a mistake earlier in this race. Very, very good recovery so far if he finishes in this position, but I guarantee you he's looking for even more spots as we look at Steven Vada right now. He's in battle. This is overall for the amateur class, currently with Errol Uriksoy and Gary Brown still hanging right there with him. You can see very late braking from Vada there to take back position and control the lead, but Errol says, I don't think I like that so much. He's going to try to look down the inside. Going to be a good old-fashioned drag race into turn 3.
It is indeed, and you saw that flashing of the headlights from Gary Brown. We haven't really talked about that tactic here this week as we did, but wow, late on the brakes, there was Yerksoy. Love that for him, and that is going to be Steven Vada falling down the order a little bit there behind Arrow Yerksoy.
DJ, I'm getting word here too from Harry Willis telling all the drivers, even if you can make it on fuel, 2 mandatory pit stops. So even though these guys can, I wouldn't be too surprised if they do come down pit road and just get a splash of fuel. So obviously not what they had intended. Maybe they gave these guys a little bit too much fuel, but these guys are going to have to come down pit road at least one more time.
Indeed, and I was actually crunching some numbers there, looking in particular at Justin Ream as we continue to watch this battle between Yerksoy and Steven Vada out on your track right now. But one of the things that was particularly interesting as I was watching it was that, remember, Justin Ream came down pit lane on lap 13. I think here, Austin, what Ream has done, is we've got a pass for the lead. Michael Janney says, I want that position back from you, Dino. And Janney able to get forward. Is there going to be any fight back? It looks like Dino may be thinking about it a little bit. We're going to watch it. Oh, it's a mistake. It was a mistake from Dino. Philippa ran a little bit wide there at Rauch.
Yeah, what a battle right now for P1 overall. These guys just giving it everything they have. I don't know if that's Philippa saying, I need to save a little bit more fuel than I'd like to, so you can go ahead and take it. In fact, I'd rather save fuel behind you. Or if that was just Janney saying, I want the lead back, I can make it on fuel, and I'm going to pass you.
Well, it could be one, could be the other. We check back on Steven Vada here in that sandwich between Yerksoy and Brown. But as I was saying, what could be very interesting about all of this is the potential for a reverse strategy. Justin Ream came down on lap 13. Now, that would be a quick splash and dash. He only took about 12 seconds worth of fuel. I think he took his short stint early and is going to be going long here. And trying to see how that will play out for him. So that could be a little bit of back and forth that we see take place over the course of the race.
Well, one thing he could be doing is just splitting the race into thirds there. Obviously, 2 mandatory pit stops. So if you already have to waste all the time going down on pit road, you might as well take a little bit of fuel each time to kind of maximize or minimize rather the time you spend in your box. You know, you're going to have to go down pit road twice anyways. You can see almost side-by-side contact between the second and third place runners of Philippa and Rankin. Rankin obviously says, I'd like P2 back, mister, and tries to go for it there. Not quite able to get it done. These guys are going to just kind of follow ahead, nose to tail as they head down into turn 3.
Well, we said these guys were saving fuel last time, and we didn't see that many passes from them. I think the gloves are coming off here as we tick closer to half an hour to go in this race for the Race Anywhere Porsche Cup. Thanking our sponsors once again, Sim Racing 3D, as well as Go for the Gap, and of course, Race Anywhere curated sim equipment. So we continue to watch here. These are your leaders overall. Michael Janney, Dino Filippa, and Elvis Rankin running 1, 2, 3. Throw a blanket over them. There's less than a half a second separating all three.
Yeah, you can see the gap between these guys, 3/10 from first to second, 2/10 from second to third. So these guys, obviously, you could pull a complete blanket over them. Obviously, not quite the case for other two classes. Daniel Tenorio currently leading John D. Cooper and Jose Garfias, and first, second, third, Yas Garfias. And then in the AM category, it's going to be Errol Urixoy, Stephen Vodek, Gary Brown, currently 2.5 seconds separating the AM category podium, and the Pro-Am, obviously, about 12.5 seconds from Tenorio to Garfias. So this is obviously the hottest battle we have right now in terms of position overall. Philippa taking the lead.
Indeed, Philippa taking the lead back. So back to where we were, but Michael Janney doesn't want to give it to him. Thinks about a little bit of a move going into Schloss Gold, but decides not to go for it. The Argentinian, now driver of the 99 Ars Racing machine. He's going to push ahead. Michael Janney for the Apex Racing Academy. He's going to stick close on his heels here, trying to see what he can do. Elvis Rankin just sticking back and watching all of this play out, not looking too aggressive here. I think he's happy where he is.
I think so too, DJ. I think he's just kind of waiting for one or two of these guys to make a mistake. Maybe they make some side-to-side contact, take each other out, and at that point, he has a 7-second gap to Ream behind him. So Justin Ream obviously a little bit too far back, but if all three of our leaders get involved in a wreck, he's going to come out your overall class leader. Might just win this entire race.
He might indeed. A little bit of a run wide there from all three drivers, but that is relatively allowed depending on how they do it. Not getting a slowdown for any of them. All three continuing to be separated by just such close gaps here. They've got a little bit of lap traffic that they're going to be coming back on. Janney in the number 2 looking like he got a good run there out of Nicky Lauda. Is he going to be able to make anything happen?
I don't think so right now. We'll have to see as I head down into turn 2 here, see who is the last of the absolute latest breakers right now. A couple are missing the apex. You can see these guys, diving a little bit down deep, kind of squaring off the corner at the very end, try to get a big run down into turn 3 here. Obviously, like I said, off corner, huge potential for a side-by-side pass here. Doesn't look like any of the drivers are close enough to do that. You can see the driver on the inside there, just letting all of these guys by. Fantastic sportsmanship there from him. That's going to be Dan Floria down on the inside, going to be, and I believe he is in the amateur category, so obviously kind of knows, he's not in this overall battle for position. He isn't going to gain or lose too much by just pulling off to the side and letting these guys by for just a split second.
He was indeed. They continue to work their way around here, going this way and that. This is the battle for P1 overall. Elvis Rankin now looking like he is going to be the closest to be able to close in a little bit. We've got another pitter behind. It looks like Taylor Lane is going to be coming down for his second pit stop. As we continue to watch everybody here, this is the best battle we have out on track.
For sure. Not only is it two cars close to one another, this is all three. The entire podium for the pro category, podium for the overall race in general.
Yeah, it is indeed. You see those drivers flirting with that sausage curb out to the outside. So we have just a few seconds left, and we are down to 30 minutes to go here in this race. So I do anticipate here at this point, if any driver would opt to come down pit lane from here on out, they would be clear to the end. So we watch Philippa leading from Janney, leading from Rankin, growing that gap despite the battle back to Justin Ream. It's now up to about 8.2 seconds.
DJ, one of the things you mentioned there was, now that we're inside a half hour left, these guys obviously had more than enough fuel to run for greater than a half hour. We saw these guys, especially in the lead of the category, pit after at least a 38-minute mark. So I wouldn't say they're clear to stop on fuel and make it to the end, because what you want to do is minimize your time on pit road, lighten the car as much as possible, take as little fuel as you can to make sure you can maximize your out on track time. See if you can gain any positions that way, because if you're on pit road for too long, you're stationary. You're not moving. You're being passed by your competition. So we see this battle for P2 in the Pro-Am category. This is going to be Garvius and Cooper right now fighting for that middle position.
Indeed, and I've been keeping an eye on this. John Cooper just slowly but surely applying pressure to Josh Garfius here as they continue to work their way around. This is Steven Martinez. Did he? I think he picked up a slowdown there as he had to let Littleton on by.
I think he did too, DJ. It's so very hard to come out of the final two corners without going a little bit extra wide there and incurring that slowdown penalty. As you can see right now, we're looking at Andrew Rasmussen. You can see there's the battle we were just looking at behind. This is going to be Philippa, Janney, and Rankin currently just slicing and dicing their way up through this traffic as they come up on Littleton right now. He's on the outside, going to try to give these guys as much space as possible. Obviously, though, Philippa kind of had to take a compromised line there, hold his wheel as tight as possible. Couldn't quite put the power down that gave the advantage back to Janney there as they run down the back straightaway here into turn 3.
It did indeed, and is that going to present anything? Littleton just trying to stay out of the way, stay out of the battles. Elvis Rankin almost running into the back of Michael Janney there as the two worked their way through Schlossgold. Now coming down into Power Horse, getting around there. Looked like that was a little bit of a later apex for Elvis Rankin, not entirely able to get the turn in that he want. Maybe just a little bit of effect of the dirty air that we've talked about, the lack of downforce that you get when you're coming through this twisty middle section.
Yeah, one of the most important parts of following someone not only is the draft and the fact that you can save fuel, but it's also the dirty air. So I wouldn't be too surprised if maybe Rankin's tires are just a little bit used up from having to stay very, very close to the cars ahead of him through all these twisty sections. This track isn't all just straightaways, lots of corners they have to do, and all these corners are high-speed corners. That's when the downforce comes into a play, and that's where if you don't have it, your tires, of course, have to make up for all that vertical grip horizontally. So obviously his might just be a little bit burned up compared to his competition's.
It may indeed. As we continue to watch Janney here, these drivers separating out a little bit, 3/10 up to Philippa and 4/10 back to Rankin. They continue to grow the gap back to Justin Ream. Ream, remember, who stopped on lap 13, a little bit off sequence of these drivers. We'll have to see how his pit strategy plays out as we keep going. This, however, is the battle that we have kept an eye on out of the corner of our eye. Gary Brown now trying to close in a little bit on Logan Vada up ahead of him.
Yeah, Gary Brown was obviously in the first position for the majority of this race. He was passed by Vada, then passed by Uriksoy. Day was able to stay right on Errol's tailbone until he was able to get past Vada there. So obviously now it's going to be Uriksoy, then Vada, then Brown. As you can see, Dave Veneno just getting a little bit too squirrely, swapping ends there at the top of the hill just outside of turn 2. We're going to go back to this battle for P3 in the AM category. It's going to be Gary Brown. He's just trying to make sure he can get past Steven Vada here again. I don't know if maybe this is a little bit of lack in pace at the end of the race because Vada used up his tires. I don't know if Gary was saving his this entire time. Could also be fuel saving. It's very hard to tell, DJ.
It is tricky indeed, and normally over the course of a race like this, we don't see tire changes, but Austin, do you anticipate maybe on this second stop anybody trying to go for a tire change?
No, sir. I feel like in this race, you're going to lose way too much time taking those tires. You can see usually these guys are able to double the triple stint tires, especially in endurance races. The only time where you wouldn't is if it's very, very hot and you're just pushing the car as hard as you can in a race like maybe Petit Le Mans where there's a lot of corners on the lap, especially not here, or maybe Daytona where you can double the triple stinted tires. So I don't think these guys are going to be taking tires. Obviously, set of 4 fresh feel good was feel pretty good right now, but I don't think these guys are going to take them because you lose about 40 seconds. And some of these cars, if you take tires in 40 seconds, would take you from the very top of your field to the very tail end of it.
All right, folks, you heard it there first. No tires getting taken more than likely. Dino Philippa continuing to lead. Ooh, Steven Vada trying to make a little bit of a move there, and he's got it. Vada back up into the lead of that AM category with a good move through Rauch. They now get their way into Schlosskold, flashing the headlights, and it looks like Urksoy not really wanting to get out of the way quite yet. But Vada to the inside. He's going to try to hold that line the best that he can. Gets it off. That's Urksoy looking for a little bit of an over-under, but nothing doing. Vada back up to the point.
Yeah, what a move by Vada there. Obviously, we saw him make the pass for the lead on Brown earlier, then be chased by Urksoy, lose that position to him, hold off Brown, now take the position back from Errol. What a drive for him tonight.
Really incredible. And we bring back here to another battle for the podium positions. This is Jos Garfias trying to close, or hold off rather, on John Cooper behind Tim. Cooper has been holding this gap to about 2 to 3 tenths of a second, lap in and lap out, just not really letting up on any pressure on Jos Garfias.
That's right. He's been stalking him for a long time, just making sure he kind of put in lap times. Obviously, this is someone, he wants to make a high percentage move. He's just going to throw it up the inside whenever he feels like it. It's getting very dark around here. Obviously, these corners are getting harder and harder to see, and that's one thing you don't really understand about most headlights, especially when it's complete darkness. Usually, whenever I drive my car at night, there's street lights all around me, so I don't really, it's hard to tell just how much your headlights work, but in iRacing, they're never good enough.
No, they are not, and they never seem to be good enough no matter what you're doing or where you're doing it. Oh, Gary Brown taking a little bit of a look there on Errol Urksoy, seeing if there was anything doing there, but that's going to actually make him fall back a little bit to the tune of about 6 tenths of a second.
That's right, DJ. It's so easy to make one little mistake around a track like this when it's so high paced. There's not a single, relatively slow corner on this track. The slowest one is probably turn 2. Other than that, all these corners are probably second, third gear at the lowest. So, if you just make up a small mistake here, the cars are going so fast the entire time, you're probably going to lose a couple tenths immediately.
You very well may indeed. We now jump back. This is Andrew Rasmussen trying to hold off Taylor Lane the best that he can. Lane looking particularly strong there for that fiercely forward machine in the 32. Little bit of a wider run there for Lane, trying to keep the power down, but I think that wide run cost him a little bit, but he's still going to try to take a look down to the inside of Rasmussen into Lauda. No, he's going to think better of it. Rasmussen drifting back onto the preferred racing line, runs a little bit wide on the exit. Is that going to set up an opportunity for Lane?
I think it just might. One of the things, even if it doesn't, he's going to try to get all the overspeed he can, going to try to arc the car from all the way on the left down to the right, try to cut this corner up here at the top of the hill at turn 2. Then it's going to be a drag race down to turns 2 and 3 here. We'll see if he can do it. Gets very, very close. Obviously just not able to put the power down on corner exit like the car in front of Rasmussen, but it's not over. I feel like he's going to be able to do another late braking maneuver into turn 3 here. Obviously, like we said, kind of banked, but then falls away from you at the end. If you can keep the car down on the inside, shorter radius around there, maybe you can pull off a pass before they get into the twisty bits.
Exactly. He's certainly thinking about it as they power their way down here. Lane just trying to find anything to get going. Not able to do it quite yet, but Lane just keeping on the pressure. This, again, is the battle for P7 in that Pro-Am category.
That's right. Obviously, we see the passes happening all race long here because they invert the field. So the faster guys are going to be at the back of the field while the slower guys are at the front. So you can kind of see, maybe where some of the mid-pack drivers just catch each other right now at the very end of this race. And that's what makes the racing so much fun to watch as a broadcaster and as a viewer for the entire time, because there's always battles going on all around the track.
Exactly. The Race Anywhere Porsche Cup Series, always exciting in that regard, always seeming to throw up some good action. And the series, of course, presented by Sim Racing 3D, Go for the Gap, and Race Anywhere. As we continue to watch the battle now for P1 overall, Michael Janney looking like he got a pretty good run out of Rauch, trying to see if there's anything he can do on your current leader, Dino Filippa. Justin Ream has come down pit lane, so we were sitting wondering about that when Ream was going to make that pit stop. He has come down now on lap 35, and he is already back out and on his way. So we'll have to see if that's been able to gain him any time or lose him any time on these leaders. Remember, the gap was about 8.5 seconds when he dove in. Checking back here on that battle with the leaders, Michael Janney looking close to Dino Filippa, just trying to see if there's any chink in the armor of that 99 machine.
It doesn't look like there is, no, unfortunately. I don't think he's going to give back position of the lead or ownership, rather, until they make another pit stop. And I think even if they do, we saw him just kind of, lose the least amount of time when they went down pit road. So I think if they do make a pit stop right now, he's going to gain probably another tenth of a second or two on these guys. But then they're just going to eat it up once they exit the pits again. As soon as they get down to a single straightaway, you get that draft as they go down.
Indeed, but I think Dino is starting to feel a little bit of the pressure here. You saw him weaving a little bit on the start-finish straight, weaving again coming out of Niki Lauda. I think Dino knows that Michael Janney in that number 2 machine has got some speed, and he is very, very cautious about it. Ooh, but a bad corner there for Janney. This opened the door to Elvis Rankin behind him.
Yeah, obviously, the best thing Philippa can have happen to him is that Janney and Rankin fight between the two of them, and he can just run away with the lead right now. Unfortunately, I don't think it's going to happen. I think Rankin's kind of just content to ride a little bit longer just to see if he can save any more fuel, see if these guys continue to make any door slamming moves like we saw earlier in this race. Now we're going to go back to look at Steven Vada. He's currently chasing down Errol Uruxoy again for the lead. We saw the position change while we were looking at a couple other battles, but Uruxoy back in position. Steven Vada looking to make a late break and move down to the inside here as we go through turn 2. I don't think he's close enough to do it, but we are going to have a drag race as we go into turn 3.
We are indeed, and I think this potential momentum here from Logan Vada is being blunted by the fact that AC Metzger and Andrew Hewitt are directly in front there, and that's going to be Hewitt, I believe, getting off to the side. Yes, it is indeed, but what that's really doing is that's allowing for Uruxoy to be able to take advantage of some of that draft and blunt the momentum as a result from Logan Vada. Now, coming up behind them right now, that is not for position on track. That is Justin Ream coming up behind them. Ream, who has just come back down and through pit lane on lap 35. Remember, he is the first driver here to take his second pit stop.
I want to mention, too, Dave Brown was right with these guys, currently now 12, almost 13 seconds off at least second place is Steven Vada right there. You can see this battle is almost probably as intense as one we were just looking at for the battle for the overall class right now. You can see still only about 5-6 tenths separating the first 3 cars in that battle right now as we look at Mike Owlett. What a battle here with Dave Menino. And actually, no, these guys, they're not even fighting for position. He's just trying to make his way through all these lap cars. You can see what a kerfluffle this whole thing is.
Exactly, and Ouellette there, a pro driver, just trying to fight his way back up through the field the best that he can and see if there's anything to do. Steven Vada maybe looking about to move, some flash of the headlights, a little bit of a maneuver. He's going to try to be later on the brakes. No, he's going to fall back into line under braking again, just right up behind Errol Uruxoy and that number 63 Porsche.
Look at how close he got there, DJ. I mean, that was probably a virtual inch between those two cars as they hit the apex and came back up off of it. Obviously, the advantage there to Uruxoy being the first car able to put the power down, but what an incredibly close gap between these two drivers. They're leaving nothing to chance here. And just ahead of them is another group of cars in a different category. So, now, we just saw the overall class leaders have to do this. These guys are going to have to do the exact same thing again right now as we look at Jas Garfius trying to make an overtake on John D. Cooper right there. These guys have been fighting for a couple laps. That was Mike Owlett just barely trying to get him between this battle right here.
Yeah, just trying to poke his nose up there the best that he can and try to do something to try to not break this up too much. There goes Ouellette on by. Jas Garfius trying to that is Ouellette trying to get by him, but I think that's going to hold him up a little bit.
Yeah, for certain. You can see kind of pulling the crossover move. Looks like he is going to gain a ton of time off the corner. Use the draft to his advantage. Try to make this move around the inside right here as we go into the twisty bits there for turn 3. You can see just how much it's line dependent there, depending on the run you can get right there. Obviously, this is not the place you want to make a pass, though. So unfortunately, John just having a ride behind him right now. This is so aggravating when you're a higher class driver trying to get by a car in the class below you.
Yeah, it really is. But Garfius there just trying to hold on to his momentum the best that he can. He knows that he's got Cooper very close behind him as well and doesn't want to give anything over to that third place machine.
Oh, yeah, if you're Garfius right now, you don't want to pull over for this guy. You want him to make the pass all on his own, and you hope he can do it down the straightaway and not cost you any time. As we right now look at the battle for overall first class, first position in the pro category, you can see Janney still harassing Philippa right now. Currently, the gap between these two cars about 0.3 of a second, just under that as we head down the straightaway here, barely down into turn 1.
Yeah, barreling down is the right phrase, and it's important to know in that battle that we were keeping our eye on with Willett, Garfius, and Cooper. Willett is actually on the same lap as them, so that technically is a battle for position.
Oh, contact between the two cars. Wow, what a move there. A little bit too late at braking. Obviously, headlight flash there from Jas Garfius as they head down into turn 3. Right now, we're still going to be looking at this battle for the overall position here. Going to get you a replay of that contact in just a couple moments. What an intense battle between these two guys. Like you said, DJ, even though they are in the same lap right now, so it is for position, they're not going to give the Pro-Am drivers any more points for passing him per driver. So, I don't see too much of the advantage to keeping him behind you right now, other than you don't want to lose any time. But, at some point, you do kind of have to live because he didn't catch you for no reason.
Yeah, indeed, you're right, but we keep our eyes focused here. No, this is the battle back with Taylor Lane and Andrew Rasmussen. Now, remember what's interesting about this is I was actually wrong earlier. Rasmussen was the first driver to come in for his second stop on lap 30. We're currently working lap 40 right now. So this battle may go away when drivers start to pit for their second stop. Bruno Alcaraz, by the way, the latest driver, it looks like, oh no, he's had a problem. He is out, although I am seeing Gary Brown coming down pit lane.
I think Gary Brown obviously taking his second pit stop for the day. 2 mandatory pit stops, even though we've seen these guys are able to make it on a single tank of fuel, 2 tanks of fuel, single pit stop. They are mandated to take 2 of them, so I believe a lot of these guys are going to come down and take just a single splash and go, maybe a windshield tear off, or just for safe measure. Don't even fuel the car, maybe just put in as much as you can, and then of course take it off as soon as you get that. But this battle right now between Owlette, Garfius, and Cooper, they haven't gotten any more separated than we were before. As we're going to stay locked in this battle between Taylor Lane and Andrew Rasmussen. These guys still obviously hounding each other. If you're Rasmussen, though, this is the last thing you want, is to have to fight with someone else in front or behind you. Obviously, they're catching other cars. Martinez just ahead of these guys. So if you're Rasmussen, the last thing you want is just pit early and then be caught behind your competition when they have to make a pit stop, but they're not going to just pull over and let you by because you're on a different strategy. They're going to do everything they can to try and mess up your strategy to make theirs be better by default.
Yeah, indeed, really and truly just want to try to maximize it as much as possible and get on by. But Andrew Rasmussen here continuing to hold off Lane, although he is caught back onto the tail of Steven Martinez. So some good speed out of that number 11 privateer machine.
Looks to the inside there just to peek. I think he's going to get room for Martinez there. Yep, he is going to go a little bit wide. Let these 2 drivers by. I don't know if that was contested, or maybe he just, got his braking point a little bit wrong. Very lucky there if he did to keep it on track and obviously not loop his car. Contact there, I believe the 2 cars, that would have been Owlette, and I believe that's going to be Jas Garfius. Garfius was spun by Owlette a couple laps ago, so I'm sure both these drivers, Garfius especially, seeing red. And if you're John D. Cooper, you're just kind of hoping that these guys take each other out and you can go right on through uncontested and not slowed down by either of them.
Well, all right. Yeah, there you see it. Owlette still holding on by. That battle shaping up all around them. Cooper and Garfius trying to figure it out. They're going to be side by side now. Going down into the corner a little bit ahead is going to be Garfius trying to keep off on contact. And it looks like Garfius is able to hold it out.
Just barely clear, probably about a half a car length as they go into the sector 2 here, currently through the 2 left-handers, then through 1 single right-hander before they go to the last 2 right-handers. 2 corners on the track here. These corners just get faster and faster as the lap goes on, so the opportunity to pass drivers kind of diminishes once you get past turn 2, and obviously turn 1, not a place you want to go too wide.
Not a place indeed you want to go too wide. But we check back in on the battle that we haven't really kept an eye on here for the past couple of laps. This is the battle for the lead overall. Philippa continuing to lead Janney and Rankin as they work their way through here. I thought there for a second that Janney may be coming down pit lane as it looked like he took a little bit of a narrower entry into the corner. And everybody's staying out on track. They've got some lap traffic to deal with as it looks like Jas Garfius comes down pit lane.
Yeah, Jas just went down pit lane, so obviously going to kind of split the strategies there between those 2 Pro-Am drivers. And we see these Pro drivers currently trying to battle amongst each other and weave their way through this lap traffic of the cars and the other classes. You can see just the kind of speed these guys are putting on the field. Everyone in that light blue font right now currently a lap down in their own field. So some drivers obviously, they have to pit twice right now. The first 4 drivers on track rather, have taken their 2 stops yet, 2 mandatory stops. They've only taken their first one, but we're getting inside 10 minutes to go here, DJ.
We are indeed, and I think the first driver to probably blink will be John Bodefer, who stopped on lap 21. That is one of the earlier stoppers here from the drivers who did stop later. Ooh, getting a little bit hairy there. Elvis Rankin looking like he had a little bit of a run on Michael Janney, potentially, but not really wanting to do anything, going there into Power Horse, and now they work their way through that corner and down the hill into Verth. I would not be surprised if we see some more of these drivers starting to peel off here any minute now, Austin.
No, DJ, right now, if you want to pit, you do want to make sure you can pit with another driver to make sure you get that draft. But obviously, if you do get the draft, you're just following that guy. It's very hard to pass here. We've seen that be the case multiple times. I guarantee if any of these drivers could make a position for an overtake, they would certainly do that. But you're just trying to size up your competition right now. Stock them until you can force them into a mistake right now. As you can see, he almost forced to do that when he tries to get past the lap car. You saw Philippa have to kind of give a tap to the brakes and make sure he didn't run in the back of, I don't know which car that was down the inside. Might have been Vada. Can't really tell though. But obviously, Michael Janney almost able to take advantage of that just little checkup coming off the final corner.
Yeah, and I wonder if they are now into the position of being a little bit more tentative, a little bit more not wanting to attack and waiting for this pit stop to play things out a little bit. Keep our eyes focused here, riding on board. There you can see some lap traffic getting out of the way of your leaders as they've got some more to deal with. That's Steven Martinez that they all duck out of the way for, yeah.
Yeah, Steven, obviously being a very gentlemanly driver, getting out of the way for these guys. You can see Michael Janney almost looks down to the inside. This is right now, I feel like he's just trying to fake out his competition. If you can make that guy just make a little bit of a mistake. We saw that happen at Sebring. Not even trying to force your opponent into an error, but we just saw it happen regardless because these cars very, very hard to just stop on a dime whenever you want to. You can see another lap car just barely able to get out of the way in time. And look at him cut this corner right now. Just kind of ride right on that rumble strip. Obviously able to take a little bit of a tighter line through there. I don't know if this is just one driver not able to go on the rumble strips because he doesn't want to. Maybe just the tire life is between these two cars. But look at how much speed he gained off that corner. You can see, believe he's got to go down to pit road right here. A very, very early entrance to pit road. You have to slow down a lot more than you think you need to. No, I think he faked him out right there. I think he faked him out because he didn't want to pit. Obviously able to take, remain in control of this bleed here.
Yeah, indeed. And I don't know if that was a little bit of a defensive maneuver or if that was a fake out one way or the other. It certainly worked. But there you see, and I've got to be thinking if Philippa and Janney continue to fight like this, they're just going to open up the door to maybe an attack from Elvis Rankin. And Philippa really starting to feel the pressure here. He's weaving this way and that, backwards and forwards all over the place. Now they're going to have Dan Tenorio up ahead of them. Here comes a move from Michael Janney. He tries to get down to the inside. That's not going to work, though. Momentum going to carry around to the outside for Dino Philippa. As now Elvis Rankin smells some blood in the water.
Yeah, you can see these guys. I feel like Dino knows his tires are kind of used up right now. You can see, I believe Janney just kind of moved over to let Rankin by there as they head down into turns 2 and 3. Oh, you can see Rankin, though, a little bit too hard on the brakes, isn't able to get the car quite slowed down and going to hand position to P2 right over back to Michael Janney. So obviously no overall change, but I'm sure Dino Philippa just loved that move right there. Rankin, though, still able to remain at P2.
Yeah, Rankin's still able to move his way up into P2. He'll be happy about that, but he'll not be happy about the gap that's now developed between himself and Dino Philippa. That's going to be around the tune of 9/10 of a second. Dave Menino, by the way, has come down pit lane for his final stop. Let's watch the leaders here to see if any of them opt to come down pit lane here. Anybody gonna choose it? No. Everyone's going to stay out for another lap.
I don't know quite what the rules are, DJ, here to say when you actually have to take your last pit stop. Is it just the final lap, or can you take it on the last lap and just go down pit road before you cross the start-finish line? I can't imagine that loophole exists, but, I'm not sure if these drivers have kind of read the rule book a little bit more than we have to kind of know what they're allowed to and not allowed to do.
I have to think the so-called Schumacher rule would be in place so that you can't take that pit stop or penalty on the last lap of the race, but we'll have to consult the rule book. Meanwhile, Elvis Rankin starting to get a little bit of aggressiveness here. The RS Racing driver holding him off. Dino Philippa just trying to drive his line ostensibly around here, seeing what he can do.
Yeah, I feel like Elvis has been saving his tires the entire race right now. I feel like he kind of knows his tires should be in a little bit better of a shape. Obviously, Dino, he's had to come from the back, had to pass a lot of cars. We saw him making a lot of muddy moves earlier. I don't know if that kind of wore out his tires early. I've heard from a lot of drivers, even experienced it once or twice myself. If you can try to treat the tires a little easier at the beginning of the race, especially at the beginning of your stint, they're going to be grippier for a lot longer. So I don't know if Dino maybe just got all the good out of his early.
May have. He's got a little bit more to worry about, though. Gary Brown up ahead of him now, one of the AM drivers that we've kept our eye on, currently third place in that AM category. Gary has come in and out of pit lane here, so he will have taken that extra fuel. Maybe this is the time that Dino decides to bring it down pit lane. It is 1, 2, 3. All of your leaders coming in. It's now do or die moment, and that was a great pit entrance from Dino Filippa.
Yeah, you can see just how late that was. Obviously, the two drivers behind him able to kind of use him as a reference to be able to tell how much he needed to slow down before they go ahead and enter pit road. But what a move by all these guys, just kind of like realize what was going on and make that late move, right turn on down pit road.
Looks like all three drivers made the stall. We jump back here to the battle for P1 in the amateur category as Yuriksoy able to hold that ahead. And oh, we've had a little bit of a flip around. No, we haven't. Excuse me. No change in position as they come out of pit lane for your leaders in the pro class. Elvis Rankin currently in second. Dino Filippa about a second and a half ahead. Michael Janney right behind Rankin.
Yeah, I don't know if this is taking less fuel and thinking he can save more and more. Almost got his braking a little bit there, messed up. Cold tires, cold brakes. That's just what's going to happen. You got to kind of build the heat back into those. You can see Elvis and Janney still fighting for that second spot on the podium, but what a great move by Dino Filippa to kind of just take the lead and go ahead and stretch that gap by, at least I would think an entire second and a half over his closest competition of Elvis Rankin before that pit stop. I don't know if that's taken less fuel or maybe just less time on pit road. I've seen a couple drivers, you can change gears up and down on pit road to, gain an extra mile an hour down there. How long this pit road is, I can't imagine you gain that much time, but it certainly is at least a little bit.
Well, I know that Filippa certainly did take a little bit less fuel. He was stationary in the box for 3.2 seconds as opposed to Rankin and Janney, who were both about stationary for 4.7 seconds. So that is going to be a little bit of an advantage to Dino here in these closing stages. Only 3 minutes to go in this race, and with drivers circling around this circuit at about the tune of a minute 30, I anticipate that we're probably 2 or 3 laps from the checkered flag.
For certain, DJ, obviously this thing isn't quite over yet. We're going to keep bringing you the battles as they happen around us right now. Currently, though, the tightest battle we see, currently this battle for P2 in the pro category. There's another battle for P5 in the pro-am and another battle for the overall lead in the M category between Yuriksoy and Vada. We've seen that battle currently just kind of stationary between those two drivers right now, as we can see some side-by-side action, almost trying to fake out your competition right there. If you get inside his head, force him a mistake, obviously, it's going to be one position that's a whole lot easier to make up.
Indeed it is, as we also just heard that Andrew Rasmussen has a little bit of a problem. His car is, quote, broken, and so that's going to shave off that battle a little bit, I think, potentially. But we watch here Eric Kulaga fighting it out right now. This is not for positioning class, I believe.
No, it is not. You can see on the left-hand side of your screen, Eric Kulaga, currently 17 seconds. The car ahead of him has 14 seconds. The car behind him, we can see, I believe Steven Martinez there just got a little bit off in the sand and the gravel trap there. Try to look at him to see what happened there. We'll try to get that to you in a couple moments here. But yeah, this is Eric Kulaga, one of the best overtakers in the league here as we see the replay. This is Steven Martinez going through there. Yeah, it looks like he just over-rotates the car a little bit there, able to get it stopped in the gravel trap and just kind of do a safe rejoin here, make sure he isn't collected by another car. But that's what obviously put him off in the gravel trap, sending him on a little adventure.
Well, we haven't really talked about it, but oh, here comes Brown. Is he going to be able to get by? Now, this is him trying to fight his way back. Remember, he was right up behind Vada and Yuriksoy earlier in the race, but not able to keep that gap. He's got about 14 seconds up the road, so a big, big gap for those AM positions and the podium positions. Meanwhile, just up ahead of them, Aero Yuriksoy able to hold them off a little bit more. We check back in on the battle for the lead. Well, really, the battle for second place now is Dino Filippa has been able to maintain about a second advantage over his rivals. However, Michael Janney here is going to get the benefit of the draft of those 2 lapped cars.
I'd watch out when you say that, though, DJ. When Dino Filippo left pit road, he had about 1.7 seconds lead over positions 2 and 3 in class. We saw him have to fight there through the other drivers in the other field, obviously fighting for position that's going to be John D. Cooper and Yas Garfias. Obviously, they're fighting for the middle step on the podium. They don't want to just get out of the way, so they might cost Rankin and Janey a little bit of time themselves. But currently, they've eaten about 0.8 of a second out of Filippo's lead right now.
Indeed, they have. So this is not done yet, and I believe this is the final lap. It snuck up on us a little bit, but that is the clock ticking over to 15 minutes. So this is now or never time for Janey and Rankin.
Yeah, they're obviously going to come out of the final turn. You can see Barney the flagman waving the checkered flag right there. That's going to be win for Dino Filippo. What a fantastic job by him. Obviously kind of just nursing that lead. We're going to go ahead and look at the battle between John Bodefer and the number 67 car. Just about under a second behind him is Justin Ream, trying to give it all he's got, but not going to be enough as they come down the front straightaway here.
Yeah, and remember, Ream did take that alternate strategy. You're going to jump back to Daniel Tenorio. Tenorio is currently the leader of that Pro-Am category, but we've got a battle for P1 in the AMs. This is Errol Yerksoy and Logan Vada trying to duke it out. That is Vada down to what is almost by the inside, trying to take a peek here and there, but it's not quite going to happen. They continue to fight their way around, and now it's going to be Errol Yerksoy and Logan Vada. Vada trying to close in behind. These are two corners where you really can't get a pass done at all. That's Drew Neubauer right up ahead of them. That is not a car for competition here. Is he going to slow anybody up? He tries to get a little bit of a slow there for Errol Yerksoy, but I think Yerksoy is going to be able to hold this out, and indeed, Yerksoy takes the victory for the N category.
What a fantastic race there for all three of our classes. I did not see it coming down to the wire just that much at the beginning of today, but what a fantastic race.
A fantastic race up and down the field. Some good battles all over the place for these drivers. Absolutely incredible stuff from them. Oh, Austin, I got to tell you, these boys have got to calm it down. Otherwise, we're going to lose our voices up here in this commentary booth.
I couldn't agree with you more there, DJ. What a fantastic race. We're going to see if we can't get some guys up here to get interviewed. We're going to try to interview as many of the podium drivers as we can, but obviously we do have a time schedule to keep up with. Sponsors are only allowing us to be on YouTube for so long, that the internet's very, very expensive.
It is indeed. And speaking of those sponsors, we want to thank them yet again for the Race Anywhere Porsche Cup here tonight. We want to thank Sim Racing 3D, Go for the Gap, and also Race Anywhere themselves. Yeah, just incredible action here today, Austin. The Red Bull Ring, I keep wanting to say it's a relatively new addition to the sim, but it's really not. And there you can see your finishing order in that pro category. Dino Filippo for Eurus Racing will finish at the win. Michael Janey behind him, and Elvis Rankin rounds out your podium. John Bodefer behind them. Just some great, great battles that we saw. Justin Ream unable to make that strategy work. Remember, we saw Ream come in early and spin it around. Not working out for him. He finishes in 5th. Dave Menino in 6th. Jonathan Willett in 7th. Harry Wills in 8th. And Daniel Ferguson, unfortunately, a DNF here today.
We're going to go ahead and look at your Pro-Am results here. We're going to have Daniel Tenorio coming home first with Yas Garfias and John Cooper rounding out your podium. Andrew Rasmussen comes home 4th, followed by Jay Steffi in 5th. Jeremy Littleton and Taylor Lane coming home 6th and 7th, followed by Casey Metzger, Eric Kulaga, Steven Martinez, Bruno Alcaraz, and Dean Timms rounds out your 12-car field.
And back in that AM category, you saw the battle to the line. Errol Yerksoy beating out Stephen Vada, Gary Brown rounding out your podium about 13 seconds back. And from there on out, it was drivers that didn't exactly have the best day out there. Travis Kepler, Joseph Smith, Michael Kulaga, and Drew Neubauer all a lap down with Andrew Hewitt, Daniel Floria, and Eric Stamp unable to really finish out here today. But we do have our first driver here to interview, and that is the winner of that AM battle, Errol Yerksoy. Errol, talk me through that race, my friend. It looked like you were constantly involved in action.
Hey, guys. How you doing? Yeah, that was a crazy race. very first, once I got in front, somebody tapped me from behind, and I ended up in the back, and I went into fuel saving mode and ended up jumping a few spots, I think, in the first pit, and it ended up making my race, that fuel saving.
So with that fuel saving in mind, I mean, how easy was it to be able to save fuel out here with the draft being so mega and all of that? Or was it something you really, really, really had to commit to?
No, I got lucky. I believe it was Gary Brown got in front of me there from the start, and I just tucked in behind him for a little while. He had some good pace. So I just kind of tucked in behind him, and then I think a few laps down the road after I had gotten bumped, I found myself in a little train. And man, that really saved a lot of fuel. And I think I only went an extra lap in the first stint, and then ended up pitting early in the second, just because I wasn't making any progress on the two guys in front of me. I think it was Steve in front of me. I wasn't making any progress. I said, well, I'm going to pit now, get a splash and dash and go and see if I can get him with the undercut. I can't remember which one is which, but.
Well, you pulled it out well regardless. As we go into next week, obviously you're going to be starting from the back of the amateur field, but how do you think it'll go?
Where are we next week? I haven't even looked at the schedule. It's always good it's always fun starting from the back. I'm always back with the guys that I raced with the most, with Kulaga and folks. So it's always good. We kind of move through the pack as a group. Eric seems to find the safest path through the pack, so I try to follow him if I can keep up.
Indeed, but obviously a great run here today. Anybody you want to thank?
Always want to thank my wife, thank the team. I also want to give a shout out to Steve Vaja. Man, that guy made me work for it tonight. He's fast. I'm scared of him, so I just want to give him a shout out because he put in a heck of a race. Good, clean, firm racing. Loved it.
Well, we loved watching it as well. That was your AM winner here today in Aero Yerksoy. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks, guys. Great broadcast.
We also have here for an interview in Austin, I believe you've caught up with him. Casey Metzger is here in the booth.
Casey, man, obviously not a great race for you here today, but, walk me through it, just the motions of today.
No, actually, I think tonight went pretty well. I think you guys had me in Pro-Am. I'm actually in the Am category. So.
Oh.
Yeah. But no, tonight was...
obviously, saw great speed out of the car here today. Fantastic job there. Yeah, no, it was a good race. I had a fun time fighting with Logan Vajda there and Errol, and I tapped the back of him earlier in the night, and I let him go back by. I felt really bad. He just locked it up going into turn one there, and I just couldn't stay out of him. But other than that, no, it was a lot of fun. First time I've ever raced here, so it was an interesting track. Yeah, very good job indeed. Is there anyone you want to thank for your run today?
Just thank the guys on my team. Daniel Tenorio, me and him work together a lot, and Errol and the rest of the guys, Harry. And thank you guys for putting on a great broadcast.
Well, thank you very much indeed. Congratulations once again. That was Casey Metzger.
All right.
It was indeed, and that is about going to wrap us up for the broadcast here tonight. Thank you for watching the Race Anywhere Porsche Cup, and again, I'd like to thank our sponsors, Sim Racing, 3D, Go for the Gap, and of course, Race Anywhere. Until next time we see you, we will be back at the same time with the same series, but in the sprint format, and that will be next Tuesday at 5:30 Pacific and 8:30 Eastern. But until then, we'll hope to see you on the track. This is DJ Clark and Austin Belkey saying good night and thank you for watching.
This is iRacing, the world's premier online racing game. iRacing puts you in the driver's seat to experience today's newest form of competitive motorsport, virtual racing, all from your home PC. Race virtually in endorsed series from NASCAR, IndyCar, IMSA, the World of Outlaws, Aussie supercars and more. Take on legendary circuits like Daytona, Silverstone and the Nürburgring. Join iRacing's global online racing community and get on track today at iRacing.com.